Hey, my name's Chris. Welcome back to another Odyssey 40k video. In this one, we're going to be talking about the Shadow Legion detachment, all the kind of new tips and tricks you can do with it. And I've also got 3 lists to go over that show the 3 different ways you can kind of play this list. I hope you enjoy. So firstly, let's talk about the detachment in itself. I think this detachment is really interesting off the bat. It's the Disciples of Be'lakor from 9th edition, if anyone played that back in the day. Really cool kind of combined arms with demons and Chaos Space Marines, and I think they've done a really good job on how they've balanced the two. Your Chaos Space Marine units still get their dark packs, but they don't get any of the other benefits, apart from obviously stratagems and enhancements. But they don't get any of the other like Khorne specific or Zen specific upgrades. And you also have a selected amount of units you can take. So you can only take 1,000 points, just like all these other Strike Force missions. You can take half your army as CSM, as allies. And you have a good selection here of different units. You can take Chaos Lords, and Terminate all the different Chaos Lords, Chaos Terminators, which could be interesting. Chosen, which is really good. Damned units, which is also very good. There's Dark Apostle, Havocs, Legionnaires, Master of Possession, Possessed, Raptors, Sorcerer, and Warp Talons. All of those, like, really good array of units there. Things that are really interesting to me off the bat when I first saw this was Chaos Lords and Chosen. Really good combos here. Really good aggressive, fast units. You don't need the extra... you don't need advance and charge from anywhere because you have it on your data sheets. They hit surprisingly hard, especially with the Chaos Lord with them. And a lot of the enhancements in this detachment are really good on a Chaos Lord. Other one, damned units can be really interesting. I think Accursed Cultists with Deep Strike, as we'll get into later. All the CSM in this detachment get Deep Strike. ACDC with which is Accursed Cultists with Dark Commune with Deep Strike is just crazy good. Like the rapid ingress plays you can do with them is going to be insane. Havocs are also really interesting. A few of the lists that I have today have Havocs in them. Possessed, very strong. Warp Talons could be interesting, but as we'll get to later, not really necessary in this detachment, which is an amazing thing. So let's go on. So we have the detachment rules. First, Prince of Chaos. Units from your army have the relevant abilities presented below. Murderer's Cowl. So Khorne, Shadow Legion Khorne unit. So that's all the demon Khorne units. This unit is eligible to shoot and declare a charge in a turn in which it advanced. So all your Khorne get advanced, shoot, and charge. Crazy good. Next is the Slaanesh one, Shadow's Caress. So all your Slaanesh demon units you cannot fire Overwatch against this. So this makes them a lot more durable against your opponent's plays. Slaanesh units, especially like Demonettes and Seekers, are really susceptible to Overwatch because they're so easy to kill. And like even killing half a unit is really impacting their damage. Still don't think they really make the cut. I'm not going into it in this video, but a lot of the demon stuff got changed, and a lot of the Slaanesh stuff specifically got hit quite hard because of the Legions of Access change. But the next one we have here is Penumbral Puppetry, which is the Zench demons, and they have native -1 to hit always. So just subtract 1 from the hit roll if you shoot at this or if you hit at this. Really nice little defensive buff. I was hoping for something a bit better, like you can't reroll against them or something. -1 to hit is good, but there is so much +1 to hit, ignores modifiers or rerolls in the game right now that this isn't as impactful as it might otherwise be. But still nice to have. Then we'll go to the Nurgle. The Nurgle demons, they get what's known now as the bodyguard roll, which is if you shoot at them with a weapon that strength is higher than their toughness, you get -1 to wound. Really good on units that are already trying to be durable. Toughness 5 on Plague Bearers. Basically, if you shoot them with strength 6 or above, until you get to strength 10, you're wounding them on 4s. And you don't want to be shooting strength 10 guns at like Plague Bearers or Nurglings and stuff like that. So really nice ability there. Really makes them quite durable. And then I kind of talked about this earlier, but Disciples of Be'lakor, so Shadow Legion undivided units only. So this is all your CSM units that you're adding in, and Be'lakor himself. This unit has the Dark Pacts rule, so from Chaos Space Marines, Dark Pacts, you can do a leadership check before you shoot or fight with them, and you can get lethal or sustained hits for your activation. If you fail it, you do take some mortal wounds, but you still get the ability. So this is a really impactful. Like, basically every time you shoot with one of your units, you're getting +1 to hit or lethal hits, because sustained hits is roughly +1 to hit. Really, really amazing just to still have that. Chaos Space Marine units do hit a little weak if they don't have Dark Pacts available, so having this really keeps the damage up and keeps them very consistent. No matter how you play them, you're always going to have access to Dark Pacts, which is just something I really, really like, that they've kept that consistency. And this is the bit that I think is just crazy. Firstly, Be'lakor gets a Dark Pact and he always passes. He just insta-packs. So he just always has sustained or lethal every time he activates. Really good. Really, really good to like kind of unlocks Be'lakor a little bit more. Then we have, the part that I think really opens this up and makes it really interesting is all your Shadow Legion Heretic Astartes, so this is all the CSM stuff, gets Deep Strike. Now this might seem that it's just okay and a little bit of a buff, but the units that you'll be taking, this just amplifies them so much. Chosen with Rapid Ingress anywhere on the board, not just on the side. Same with Possessed. Like Chaos Cultists, I generally think are one of the best units in the game now, because just 10 OC being able to Rapid Ingress anywhere on the board, you can uppy downy with one of the strats, which is to put them back into reserve and then Deep Strike them down. You have so much flexibility now with your entire army, because everything has Deep Strike now, because demons natively all have Deep Strike, so it just gives everything in your army is consistently has Deep Strike. It really opens up some really interesting stuff. Also, Havocs, as I said earlier, with Deep Strike means if you're lifting them up and Deep Striking them back down, or to start them in reserve, you have so many more angles to play with. It's a really, really strong ability, and I wouldn't just glance over it. I really try and think of all the different things you can do. A Cursed Cultist with Dark Commune that can Rapid Ingress in the midboard, or with one of the enhancements, which I believe, one of the enhancements is a Scout 9. So being able to Scout 9, go off, kill something, and then the next turn, at the end of your opponent's turn, if you're not in engagement range, you can lift them back up, put them into reserve, do all sorts of cool stuff with them. It's really, really neat what you can do there. Okay, so now let's go on to the stratagems. And I also think there's probably 3 to 4 of these that are just great. A couple that are very situational, but I think it's a really good package all in all. So first we have Spiteful Demise. This is at any phase for 1 CP, just after a Shadow Legion unit from your army is destroyed, before removing the last model in that unit from the battlefield, and before rolling any dice for the Deadly Demise ability. That Shadow Legion unit, you can use the stratagem even though it has just been destroyed. Roll a d6 for each enemy unit that is within engagement range of the last model in your unit, adding to the result if your unit has a Slanesh keyword. On a 4 to a 5, that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. On a 6, it suffers 3 mortal wounds. So if it's a Slanesh unit, on a 2 up you do some mortals, or on a 4 up you do 3. Everything else it's a 4+. If you're taking Slanesh units just to do 3 chip mortals for 1 CP, sure, but it's not that great. You need to really put, yeah. It's not very good. It's also an engagement range. If it was like a 3 or 6 inch aura of everything has a chance to take damage, it would be really interesting. A unit of Seekers could send forward, but you're just doing some chip damage to 1, maybe 2 units that you're in engagement range with. It's really not worth it. Next we have Channeled Wrath. This is the Khorne specific, or the Khorne enhanced stratagem. So it's in the fight phase, 1 Shadow Legion unit from your army that has not been selected to fight this phase. Until the end of the phase, melee weapons, equipment, models in your unit have the Lance ability, which is +1 to wound if you've made a charge move, which also notably is Heroic Intervention. So if you have Heroic, you can still spend the strat and get the Lance ability on your unit. If your unit has the Khorne keyword, until the end of the phase, improve the armor penetration characteristic of those weapons by 1 as well. So this stratagem is insane on a few things. Blood Crushers, it is very good on, giving them Lance on their main swings and +1 AP on their little swings are 2 very, very good breakpoints. It's also just getting Lance onto Chosen or Possessed is just so great. Their one weakness is they don't have wound rerolls, and they're only strength 5 or 6, apart from the Power Fists and stuff. So giving them +1 to wound is just incredible. That with sustained hits as well from the dark packs that they can do, really can amplify their damage. And then obviously on your demon units, the Khorne demon units, you also get the +1 AP, which is really nice as well. The next stratagem here is Death Denied. This is the Zench flavored stratagem. It's in your command phase, 1 Shadow Legion unit from your army, 1 model in your unit regains up to 3 lost wounds, which is nice that it's flat 3. A lot of them use a d6 plus 1. In addition, if your unit has the Zench keyword, return up to 1 destroyed model, excluding characters, to your unit with its full wounds remaining. So there's a couple of places where this can be pretty interesting. The healing is really never important unless you're like, it'll stop you from taking a battle shock and you really need to not be battle shocked. So there's that cute scenario. But where this really comes in, and where I really like it, is with a unit of Pink Horrors. Because Pink Horrors split, and once a Pink Horror is split, you can always res that 1 Pink Horror back. No matter what size the unit is, you can always res that 1 Pink Horror back. So a fun little trick you can do with this is put 1 Pink Horror onto a point, everything else behind a ruin, and then if your opponent doesn't wipe out the entire Pink Horror unit with 1 shooting activation, you kill that model, split as many as you can, or everything behind the wall, and then at the start of your next command phase, you can 1 CP res a Pink Horror back onto the center point, onto the objective, and score primary, unless your opponent's also put stuff on the primary. But it's a really fun way of forcing your opponent to do things, because like, well, if they can't, like, not a lot can shoot, -1 to hit, 4 up invulnerable save, Pink Horrors off the board in 1 turn, in 1 activation, because as soon as they've shot once, you kill the one that's been on the point off, and yeah, you're starting that whole thing. And it's also even better if the plink damaged them earlier, and then you can just sit them behind the wall, and then it forces your opponent to do stuff. I think there's so many tricks you can do with Pink Horrors in this stratagem that I definitely would keep it in your back pocket. Is it the most powerful thing in the world? No, it's only 1 model coming back, but it is pretty strong in specific scenarios. So just keep an eye on it. And also, you still have the demon, like the demonic. I actually don't know the name of it. The generic demon ability is still there. So if you pass the battle shock test and you're in your shadows, you get to heal models as well. So there's kind of like 2 ways of being able to do it. So if they hit you really hard and you're below half strength, you can just res naturally. And then if that doesn't work, then you can use this command point to heal again and get onto the point. So there's a couple of different ways you can go about it. It's really interesting and really good. Okay, so now we have the last 3. The next one is Encroaching Darkness. This is 1 CP in your shooting phase, up to 1 Shadow Legion Heretic Astartes unit from your army, and up to 1 Shadow Legion's Demonica unit from your army. You can only select units that have arrived from reserve this turn. So they have to have been stuff that either you've lifted up and put down, or have come in from reserves this turn. So it's kind of a bit of planning involved in this one, but still very strong. It just means you can't walk forward and get ignores cover on a unit. But it is 2 units for 1 CP. And you get, leading a bit on there, is until the end of the phase, weapons equipped by models and your selected units have ignores cover. Really good. Laskin and Havocs love that. Soul Grinders kind of like it. Be'lakor doesn't need it. There's not a lot of other units that really need this. Those are kind of the 2 that, since Flamers already ignores cover natively, there's not a whole lot else that needs them. But those 2 units specifically really do like this stratagem. Then next we have Binding Shadow. This breaks the army wide open, and the fact that it's only 1 CP is very good. Very good. So it's Binding Shadow. In your opponent's fight phase, end of your opponent's fight phase, up to 1 Shadow Legion Heretic Astartes unit from your army, and up to 1 Shadow Legion's Demonica unit from your army. You can select units that are not within engagement range of 1 or more enemy units. So you can't be within engagement range. Remove those selected units from the battlefield and place them into strategic reserve. Now that is very specific wording here, and I really want to make this known now that it is just into strategic reserve, which means you don't have to come back in the next turn. So you can lift stuff up turn 1 and keep it in reserves the entire game until turn 5 and put it back down. So what I love to do, like what I think is really powerful with this, is have a unit of cultists that you want to put into reserves, and then end of your opponent's turn 1, you just lift them. And if there's a demons unit that you want to put into reserve as well, lift that up as well. Otherwise, You can just lift up the one. You don't. It's one or two, and it's either. So you don't have to do one and then you get the other. You can just pick one or the other. Really flexible stratagem, but just having cultists in reserve for the entire game is just great. It also means you can have more drops down. You can always start cultists in reserve as well, but they have to come in from turn 3. So this is a way of like being able to, yeah, you have to spend a CP, and there is really no CP regeneration in this entire army. So you will be fighting to use CP sometimes, and really having to play around your CP management. But just the ability to do stuff like that is just crazy. Putting a unit of Havocs and a Soul Grinder into reserve, and then dropping them down to hit a flank really hard. There's just some really, really cool things you can do with this. Just lifting things up just to give yourself some more positional potentials. Being able to lift up a Beast of Nurgle to be able to go do behind enemy lines the next turn. All that kind of stuff. Really, really strong, really flexible, and the more you play with this stratagem, the more plays will come to you with it. And I think you'll be really, really happy with how strong this stratagem is. Then last but not least, we have Shade Path. It's a 2 CP strat. It's the only 2 CP strat. Your opponent's charge phase, just after an enemy unit declares a charge, one Shadow Legion unit from your army that was selected as the target of that charge, until the end of the phase, subtract 2 from charge rolls made for that unit. In addition, if your unit has the Nurgle keyword, that enemy unit must take a Battle Shock test. So this is the Nurgle stratagem. The Battle Shock test thing is very, very minor if you're Nurgle, so it doesn't change a whole lot. 2 CP for -2 to charge is pricey. It's one of the strats that like you hear a lot of people talk about. It's like, if you have 2 CP in your opponent's charge phase, you're going to let them know this to make things a bit scarier for them, and like just know like they're never going to go for like a 9-inch charge, right? Because you can just make it an 11-inch charge. So like it's one of those things that you're probably never going to use this except in very niche situations, but when it comes up, it's going to be very powerful, and it's more powerful for the fact that your opponent has to know about it and has to play around it. So kind of keeping 2 CP up in your opponent's turn can be very viable into like the melee matchups, just to force them into weird or different plays because this is available to you, not because you'll actually use it. So it's not bad, not great. I think this is, if it was 1 CP, it would be insane. So it kind of has to be 2 CP. I still think the demons, Spiteful Demise is probably the Slaanesh Demons one is probably the worst. The Plink Mortals really never will come up, but I think it's a good package. There's 4 strats that are very good. Shade Path is good in its own way, and yeah, and that's kind of it for the stratagems. Lastly, we have the enhancements. These are really, really good. I think you'll probably be taking 2 to 3 of these in most of your detachments and most of your army lists. They are very strong, very different plays depending on how you want to play them, which is just really, really awesome thing to be able to do. So first we have Leaping Shadows. Shadow Legion model only, makes sense. Models in the bearer's unit have the Scout's 9 ability. Now this is crazy on an absolute plethora of things. One, you have access to Nurglings in this army, so you have infiltrators that are cheap and they can block out and make sure you always get your Scout. If obviously you have to win the die roll for first drop, but even if they do, you can always block out the other side, so then you always have somewhere to scout to. A 9-inch Scout is crazy good. It's good on Chosen, led by a Chaos Lord. Unit of 10 Chosen with Scout 9 can just be just that first wave of hammer that you really need to push on your opponent. It's good on, ironically, it's like good on like a Great Unclean one. It can be really powerful. Just getting the clean one, having an additional move phase before the game begins. Really, really powerful there. It's one of the things I think is very fun with it is adding it to a one of the Nurgle infantry characters, so Sloppity, Poxbringer, or Scrivener, and then adding them to a unit of Plague Bearers, because Plague Bearers innately sticky objectives if they start the turn on them. So you, with a 9-inch Scout, if you start them on the line, because obviously you can always scout backwards if you don't go first, but if you start them on the line, you can scout up and potentially hit 2 objectives, depending on the deployment, with your 9-inch Scout ability, and sticky them if you go first, and then you can move off them. So you can hold two objectives that forces your opponent onto those two objectives, not just to shoot the things off, because you necessarily don't even have to leave anything on the objective. You can move them off in your movement phase, and they still stay under your control. It's just such a fun thing to do. It is expensive. It's 185 points, I think, for that combo, but it is really funny, and it is really good. Next we have Fade to Darkness. Shadow Legion model only. At the end of the fight phase, if the bearer's unit destroyed one or more enemy units this phase, and is not within engagement range of one or more enemy units, you can remove the bearer's unit from the battlefield and place it into strategic reserves. You know how I said you don't need Warp Talons in this army? It's because you can make any unit a Warp Talons unit. This is crazy. This is crazy on Chosen. This is crazy on Possessed. Probably not on Possessed because you don't really want to take a Master of Possession. On Blood Crushers with the character, really strong there. The one thing with the Blood Crushers they will put out though is they do mortals on the charge that aren't a choice. So if you kill yourself out of being able to fight the unit in your fight phase, you can't then disappear because you didn't kill a unit in the fight phase, which it specifically says you have to do. So just be a bit mindful there. But the last one, and I think this is my favorite of the options, is on a Bloodthirster. A Bloodthirster with access to, it has advance in charge because Orkhorn has advance in charge. One is just very good. You have access to the strat for Lance and +1 AP. More so the +1 AP than the Lance, but still making sure you're wounding pretty much anything on the game on 2s. So you're hitting on 2s, wounding on 2s with an additional pip of AP. You really are guaranteeing that you're killing what you're in engagement range with. And then being able to just go back into reserves and then rapid ingress again and just constantly be doing stuff like that is just so strong. So strong. Yeah, really think that this one will go on most army lists, I think. You have to have a good reason not to. Then we have Mantle of Gloom. This one's really cool as well. Shadow Legion model only. While an enemy unit is within engagement range of the bearer's unit, subtract 1 from the objective control characteristic of models in that unit. This is, again, just really good control of the game. Good on smaller units, on a unit of legionaries with a Chaos Lord or something like that, really trying to flip those primaries. You kill one unit, tag into another, drop its OC, and then you control your opponent's points. Also really interesting on a Bloodthirster. Even like on a Guo, just drop the OC of everything that the Guo is in engagement range with. There's some really cool... Guo is great in Clean One, by the way, if I hadn't said that earlier. So there's some really cool plays with this. Lots of different ways to do it. Even on like a Lord of Change, probably not as ideal because you don't want to keep them in combat, but a Lord of Changes aren't great at killing things, but if you can shoot something off an objective, tag into something else, flip the primary, it can be pretty interesting. So there's a lot of different ways, and I would love to hear like in the video description, in the comment section, what with these enhancements, like which ones are your favorites and what units you want to have them on. It would be really cool to see. Then the last one is a Malice Made Manifest. This is probably the one that you won't be taking. There's kind of always up to 3 good ones and then one kind of stinker. This one's like not bad, but it isn't the best. So 1 Shadow Legion model only. At the start of the fight phase, select 1 enemy unit within engagement range of the bearer's unit and roll 1d6. On a 2 to 5, that enemy unit suffers d3 mortal wounds. On a 6, they suffer 3 mortal wounds. It's the cheapest enhancement. It also does the least amount. So it's doing on average 2 mortal wounds to something is just not really where I'm at when it comes to enhancements. I want to be impacting the game. The Scout's 9 ability is strong. The Warp Talon's ability, very strong. Minusing OC, very strong. And then this just, you kill a Space Marine. It does mean your unit is a bit more consistent, which is always something nice. So definitely don't disregard it completely. And if you have some spare points, maybe it's an interesting thing to add to a unit. It is just at the start of the fight phase, so it's just every turn if you stay in combat. So again, like even on like a Guo, just to chip some more wounds through could be really good. On a unit of Plague Bearers with a character attached, you could add this to like pump up their damage fractionally. There is reasons for taking it. And that is the detachment, guys. I'll just going to cut quickly, bring up the next slide, which is going to have all the army lists on it, and then we'll go through 3 really interesting army lists for Shadow Legion. See you back in a sec. Alrighty, let's get into these lists. And the first one we have is a more balanced version. This one is a bit more interesting. I'm trying to pull different units for different ones here. This one is not using Bellicor. That is one thing I forgot to mention in the detachment breakdown, is you don't actually need to have Bellicor. So the first list we're going through is not going to have Bellicor. The other two, I believe, do have Bellicor in them. This one's trying to play a lot more of the tricksy side of this detachment instead of the raw power. There's definitely a lot of damage you can do in this detachment, but this one's trying to play the 5-turn game and just win by, you know, an amount, not necessarily by blowing people out. Because that's always going to be a more risky way of playing, whereas this is trying to be a lot more stable and have more options available. So we have a Spoil Prox Scrivener with Leaping Shadows for the 9-inch scout move. We have a unit of 3 Nurglings, unit of 6 Nurglings. Nurgling's getting the bodyguard rule, so it's being toughness 3, and then if your strength's high, -1 to wound. Very, very good. So, and 60 points for 6 bases, which each have what, 4 wounds each. Really, really durable for the points. So, really like the 3-man just to be your early game piece, and then a 6-man just to go up and tag some stuff of your opponents can be really obnoxious to deal with. Unit of Pink Horrors, mainly for the tricks from the Detachment Review. You can do some really cool stuff with this. Also, just like another shooting piece that is really difficult to deal with for some armies. A lot of armies don't have 20 to 30 wounds worth of output in a single unit, so you can really manipulate them. They will be bad in some matchups. In the melee matchups, they do often just die, but in certain matchups, they're going to be really strong here. And then the unit of Plague Bearers to go with the Scrivener, so they can go up and sticky the objectives early and then move back to some safety, and then stay right behind. The Scrivener also gives them +1 OC, so you can really flip primary really easily with this unit. It's really, really nice there. Then we have the other data sheets. We have a Beast of Nurgle. This is we have a unit of 1 and a unit of 2. The unit of 2 is just very, very funny to deal with for opponents. It's 6 OC, so again, you can just threaten objectives. It can move through walls. They now have a 6-inch scout move, so you also get a free movement phase out of them, so you can be a bit more aggressive with them. They're a great unit to pick up and put back down, especially the singular one, but even the doubles. Really, really interesting use here is they have a decent amount of attack, like of AP2 damage to attacks. Like if we just go into this, so the unit of 12 is 12 attacks, hitting on 4s, strength 6, AP1, damage 2, with dev wounds. So it's 12 attacks, so you get 6 hits. You'll get 4 wounds. They'll save half of them, so you're killing 2 to 3 guys with the dev wounds, maybe even a 4th. Like, it's not crazy, but then there's not a lot of marine units that are like the 5-mans that will ever kill a single Beast of Nurgle. Toughness 9 with, and if your strength's higher, -1 to wound. Really difficult to deal with. Really, really difficult to deal with. Then we have 1 unit of Blood Crushers with all the upgrades. Really just nice consistent piece here. Advance and charge on these guys. They absolutely love it. They love the stratagem for Lance and +1 AP. Specifically, the extra AP is really good for them. And just nice utility unit. It kills 5 Marines on average, so you can kind of like get the trade going. They're about the same points as a lot of 5 Marine units. 5 model Marine units. So kind of like is a nice balance there. Can also hit into harder things with the Lance. So it's quite a nice little just utility piece. Again, this army list is more about having all the tools available to you and then you just utilizing them correctly instead of, well, this is the best data sheet, let's take maximum of it and try and win that way. We have a unit of 6 Flamers. Nice to have the option here. A lovely thing that a couple of people have brought out to me is lifting this up and another unit of Space Marines, of Chaos Space Marines, and then dropping these down to overwatch anything that tries to get close to the Chaos Space Marine unit. So like, if you want to put cultists on a point, you can put these guys down to overwatch if anything comes out. Some really fun things you can do with this unit. And they don't need any strat support. And that with the -1 to hit are slightly more annoying to deal with than you would like. especially with the six man. The 3-mans are still very easy to kill. 6 can be difficult, and you can always res them, so there's still some tricks you can do with them. Which is like, I think they're a great utility piece. Being able to deep strike, being able to lift them back up, deep strike them down again, if your opponent doesn't deal with them. Really, really good unit. Then we have 2 units of Flesh Hounds. They love the Corn Strats, they love Advance and Charge. The Flame is also kind of nice against like the Eldar stuff, because you can chip a unit down. Their ability got changed with the data slate, and it is now effectively the same as the Scout move. So at the end of your opponent's turn, if they're not in engagement range, you can lift them back up into the sky and then deep strike them down on your turn. Really good. So really great utility pieces here. Helps split primary. They don't kill a whole lot, even with Lance plus 1 AP. But they do decent amount of damage. They're good at chipping things down. And they're durable enough as they are. Really, really nice there. These are in most lists, and I could see them being in pretty much every list just because of the uppy downy. 75 points for something with OC. They can just go through walls, charge things, pick up trash, and yeah, do secondaries for you. Really, really nice. Then we have the allied units, and you can see you can have up to 1,000 points, and in this list I have pretty much 1,000 points. I literally have 5 points less than the maximum here. 10 points less on the maximum allies, but 5 points of my list. So we have 2 Chaos Lords. One of them is the Warlord, because I didn't want the Scrivener to be my Warlord, and allied units can be your Warlord. It's the same reason why in Imperial Knights you can have the 12 Armiger and 2 Immolator list, is because one of the allies, the Minstrel and Priests I think you take, can be your Warlord. So quite nice there. We have 2 Chaos Lords, one with Mantle of Gloom for the -1 OC, and the other one to Fade to Darkness to go back into reserves after it kills something, at the end of the phase if it kills something. Then we have 2 units of Chosen, one big one small one, all the upgrades you would expect on both of them. Most of the time it'll be the Mantle of Gloom with the 5-man, so you can kill one unit, tag another, flip the primary, and then just kind of be efficient. And then the other one with Fade to Darkness goes with the 10-man, because that can pretty much guarantee, especially if you have access to Lance. And remember, the Chaos Lords get a free strat, so you can Lance for free with them, which is just very, very good. Pardon me. And yes, you can Lance for free for them every time that they fight. You can suck them back into reserves, or you can rapid ingress them for free after they've gone up the first time. It's really, really cool stuff you can do with this unit, and it's absolutely obnoxious to deal with, and it just hits like a ton of bricks. Do be mindful with the Fade to Darkness, though, that if your opponent has access to Heroic Intervention plays, that you might be stuck in combat. That's why I think it's better on the 10-man, because you have more chance of wiping multiple units, because they can hit so hard. Then we have 3 units of Cultists. I think every single list starts with 3 units of Cultists. It's 150 points. It's 30 OC. They can deep strike. They can do missions. They can flip primaries. They just do everything that you want. And they're just so good. Being able to rapid ingress one of these and then just flip your opponent's primary is just very funny as well. It's just, some very, very fun things you can do with them. And then lastly in this list, we have 2 units of Lascannon Havocs. Now, I do think this detachment in a whole has a popping transports issue. So the Rhinos, your Wave Serpents, all that kind of stuff, it does struggle to kill that and the thing inside, because you only have so many units, and your units are quite valuable. So you kind of have to either have some guns or have a more all-in strategy. If one of the other lists is kind of a bit more all-in. So in this list, because it's balanced, I want to have access to some long-range shooting. So I have Lascannon Havocs, and remember they can Dark Pack, so they can still get sustained. I took the Plasma Gun on them specifically because I think it's better, because they're probably going to be staying at range as much as they can. So just an extra shot at 24 inches is kind of where I went for there. But yeah, they're there to open up the trouble pieces, the transports, that one tank in the backfield. It's like, well, I'm just going to deep strike these guys down, get an angle, and shoot. Remember, they can get Ignores Cover as well, so the AP3 Lascannon with Ignores Cover is really, really strong. So that's kind of like the idea of this list. It's just kind of, it plays the game fairly well. It has a bunch of just trash units. You get the 3 units of Cultists. You get the 2 units of Flesh Hounds. the units of Beast and Nurgle. You could genuinely just flip that into 2 units of 1 as well, depending on how the secondaries feel for you. I think this is a really good starting place, and this is such a issue for your opponents to deal with that it is very funny. And also better at killing a couple more Marines because you get more attacks to actually do some damage there. And yeah, so you have a bunch of trash, you have a bunch of actually good units, and you just play 40k really, really well. So that's the list number 1. The next one is it's Shadow Bile-esque, but this is what if we just did what Creations of Bile are doing, but in a different way with different tricks. So this is Bile at home, kind of the Creations of Bile at home. This one does start with Be'lakor as the Warlord, as he should be. He's very good. He got quite a bit of a glow up in the recent update. So yeah, he moves 12. I'm just gonna take a drink. Toughness 11, 3 up save, 20 wounds, leadership 6, OC 5 with a 4 up invulnerable save. He has a gun that you're pretty much always going to hazardous for. 12 shots, hits on 2s with Dark Pack, so for sustained you're getting 100% hits. Strength 6, AP 3, 1 damage with dev wounds and ignores cover. Really, really nice set. Good at just chipping away at those cheap, easy to screens and stuff like that. Really good access there. His melee hasn't really changed, I don't think. He still gets 7 big swings. It's strength 14, AP 4, damage D6 plus 1, or 14 sustained hits. So then you can pact for lethals here, which is really nice. You get sustained and lethals with 14 attacks, hitting on 2s. Strength 8, AP 3, damage 1. If this was damage 2, he would be absolutely insane, but it is damage 1, so it's good at clearing screens. He's actually really not that great at killing just generic Marines, because you need to put so many saves on them. And with 14 attacks, you are probably getting enough wounds to kill the unit, but he does still get armor saves. So you're probably killing like 3 to 4 Marines with this. You might get the whole unit with the melee, because it is 2 damage each, but there is definitely chances for failure. Then for abilities, so he's got Deadly Demise D6, Deep Strike, and Stealth. Stealth is still really nice. He's got the Shadows of Chaos ability. That's the affection ability. Haha. So he's the Dark Master. The area of the battle for 6 inch random is always in your Shadows of Chaos, same as before. And he still has the 3 abilities. So the 3 pick me abilities are, he still has the 18-inch lone op within 6 inches of him. Really, really nice. Really good for that first turn. Just cool, let's just get something up and going. And in the battle step of your opponent's command phase, if an enemy unit that is below its starting strength is within 9 inches of this model, that unit must take a battle shock test. So instead of being under half, it's just if you've lost a model. For the purposes of this ability, if a unit has a starting strength of 1, it is considered to be below its starting strength while it has lost 1 or more wounds. So that's very nice. In addition, for each enemy unit that fails a battle shock test within 9 of this model regains up to D3 lost wounds. So this is the turn 3 play, the turn 4 play. You've sent Be'lakor in, he's gotten slapped down. Cool. You're just going to dump out a bunch of battle shock tests. Hopefully your opponent fails some, and then you can gain back, 4-6 wounds and just be that extra level of durable. Really interesting, situational, but really, really interesting when it does come up. Then lastly, we have while a friendly Legion's Demonical or Shadow Legion unit is within 6 inches of this model, each time that unit makes an attack, reroll a hit roll of 1. Really nice here. Really good with all your shooting units, with those Havocs, those Soul Grinders, but also just really nice in melee as well. Like Chosen with reroll 1s to hit with sustained hits. Okay, I'm loving that. Hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s. Whew, that significantly increases your damage output with that unit. So really good force multiplier here with some really good damage with a decent shooting attack. He does have to be your warlord. Totally makes sense. You'd want him to be your warlord in this detachment anyway. And yeah, that's Be'lakor for you. So really good. I think he can fit into so many different lists here. But I also want you to consider lists without him, because there are situations where he is 375 points. And if he isn't doing a lot for your army, is he really worthwhile in it? So just think about that as well. Then for battle line, this one we only have a unit of 3 Nurglings and a unit of 6 Nurglings, single beast of Nurgle, 3 units of 3 Blood Crushers with all the trimmings. 2 units of Flesh Hounds, so that's kind of like your entire scoring package apart from the cultists that are below. It's just 2 Flesh Hounds and 1 Beast of Nurgle. And then we have 2 Chaos Lords again with the same upgrades as before, with the same package here. I think it is just a very, very strong package. And I think you could see this in a lot of different armies. The 3 units of cultists, because why wouldn't you? But then finally, to make this a bit more Bile-esque, a unit of possessed. So we have 10 possessed, 15 chosen, 2 Chaos Lords. So you just have these hard-hitting units that you can really all in your opponent. You also can start the trade with these small Blood Crusher units and the Flesh Hounds. So you have the pieces there, but then you also have Be'lakor to be a force multiplier, giving your possessed and stuff loan up 18, so you forces your opponent to come close to you. You have to be within 18 inches, right? So like if you have your possessed, they have a 9-inch move. If your opponent's within 18 inches, it means it's going to be an 8-inch charge at the worst if they're actually trying to shoot you. There's some really interesting stuff you can play there, and even with the chosen, having the innate advance in charge means your opponent has to get within 18. If you roll, well on your advance roll, you can really threaten them. So really cool being able to like use that early game and then go into the rerolls when you're going for a go turn. Really like great synergies there with Be'lakor himself. Be'lakor also being a beat stick and really good into vehicles, because this list isn't great into vehicles. The Lance incredibly helps with that. Being able to give Lance to the unit of possessed or the unit of chosen really helps push that damage through that you need to. Otherwise, yeah, it's really just Be'lakor on this list that's good into vehicles. The Blood Crushers are like not terrible because they have Lance on a couple of their attacks, but it's still not great, and you're not going to kill a unit with just one. The Mortals are do more damage than anything else there. So you're doing damage in a few different phases, not in the shooting phase, specifically not in the shooting phase. But you're doing a really good job of just like kind of hurting things, different phases. You have these problem pieces, which is like the Chaos Lords with Chosen, being able to minus OC, being able to like constantly cycle back. You can also rapid ingress them for a heroic play, which is a really fun thing you can do with like the Chaos Lord with 10 Chosen. So it goes out, kills the unit, goes back into the sky. Your opponent's turn, they're like, okay, I'm going to go all in Be'lakor. Then you rapid ingress the unit within 6 inches of Be'lakor. So then if they charge Be'lakor, then you get to heroically intervene with the Chaos Lord for free. And then you can kind of flip the game back on its head a lot of the time. Some really, really fun things you can do with this. And 10 Chosen aren't easy to kill for most armies. Like 10 Chosen are difficult to kill. So those are like, so that's the Bile-esque list, the creations of Bile at home. A lot more aggressive, this list, kind of like play slow until your opponent comes out, and then it just full sends everything. If you've got both chosen on the board, you rapid ingress the possessed, or vice versa, you do it some other way. You just send everything forward, and you're just trying to hem your opponent in. There's definitely a version of this list that you tweak without the possessed, and you add in the ACDC unit, so you can have that threat earlier, because the ACDC unit with the scout enhancement is just absolutely absurd. Really, really powerful combo there that you can just scout 9, and then you can advance the church from turn 1 and just hem your opponent in, so you can get everything else forward, get into position, and then you have the wave 2 with the Chosen and Be'lakor, and the Blood Crushers as well. So you can really kind of like do a double wave there. Not sure which one's going to be better. I try to make this a bit more Bile-esque with the possessed, but you could really try it both ways, and I think both ways would be really interesting to try and see how they play out. And then finally we have the shooting list. This one took me a little bit longer to figure out, but I think this list has actually got a lot of gas in it, and it's really interesting. So we have Be'lakor, we have a Bloodthirster. This time the Bloodthirster has Fade to Darkness. So this Bloodthirster can go out, kill something, get put back into the sky, and then just rapid ingress. The reason I don't love this as much is you have to pay a CP to rapid ingress them every time, whereas the Chaos Lord you can reinvest it for free. So kind of the whole cycle doesn't cost anything with the Chaos Lord, whereas it does with the Bloodthirster. But the Bloodthirster is an absolute beat stick, loves the strat. The Lance plus 1 AP strat is just insane on him because it makes him incredibly consistent. And yeah, so that's kind of the HQ package there. Then we have 2 units of 3 Nurglings. Again, you want to be able to just infiltrate, stop your opponent's infiltrators, kind of, and just good annoying pieces. 1 Beast of Nurgle, 1 unit of 6 flamers. This unit is just really interesting because you can pick it up, drop it down, do all sorts of kind of like nice little Overwatch plays, hit one thing, kill all your opponent's chaff. It's more designed to just kind of annoy your opponent and have to worry about it the entire game than actually being an intense damage dealer itself. But it does do some decent damage, and 6 bodies with -1 to hit are a bit more annoying to deal with than you'd like. So that they're a nice piece, and they also add quite a bit to this style list. Then we have 2 units of Flash Hounds. Again, just super versatile. Means if you don't have CP to send things back up into the sky, you can just do a unit of Flash Hounds. So making sure that behind enemy lines, engagement on fronts, all those secondaries are always open to you because you have these units. It's really, really powerful for that secondary play. Then we have 2 Soul Grinders. Now, I hummed and hawed for a while on what the best demonic allegiance is for them, and I decided on Khorne. The Nurgle one, I don't like. The Nurgle one you'd get for the gun more so than the bodyguard rule that you get from the detachment, because there's 2 things to decide on this, right? It's what additional weapon you get for the Soul Grinder and what buff you get from Shadow Legion, right? Because they get the buff of whatever allegiance they are a part of. So yeah, Nurgle get the bodyguard rule, which isn't super great. Nice against laser cannons, don't get me wrong. There is definitely use cases, but isn't as impactful. The flame cannon, though, is quite nice, so I could definitely see that as an option. The Zench one, if there wasn't Havocs in this list, I would definitely be considering the laser cannon shots from it. The -1 hit is also kind of nice. It just makes them just a bit more durable in a different way. The Slaanesh one, I think, is the worst here because the Shadow Legion ability isn't that great and the weapon also isn't that amazing. So it's kind of like, that's probably the worst option. But I went with Khorne for the flexibility it offers. With Khorne, you get advanced shoot and charge. So your Soul Grinders can advance and shoot for 1, which is awesome. But they're also, because they're such a big model, they can be really hard to really easy to move block. So being able to have the flamer and the harvester cannon to kind of kill the chaff, and then advance and charge and advance and shoot onto into an enemy unit can just be a nice added bit of maneuverability in the list. So that's kind of why I like it there. They also, out of all the strats, the Khorne strat is the best one for them. So it's the other consideration is what strat's good for them. Being able to get +1 to wound, again, isn't super impactful here, but +1 AP on those weapons is super, super nice. Really pushing through a lot of damage. They have 11 attacks with the setup, hitting on 3s. So you can push through a lot of damage with them. But do be mindful, they are a big model and they are hard to position and hard to move around, especially if you're playing on WTC boards. They're pretty hard to move around. They are very good to lift up with the stratagem with a Chaos Space Marine unit. You lift up a Soul Grinder and a unit of Havocs, and you have a really nice shooting package into anything. You can shoot the Havocs into a transport, and then the Soul Grinder to what pops out of it. There's a lot of fun things you can do with them, and I definitely look into them. They aren't cheap, but they are durable. 14 wounds, toughness 11, 3 up save, 4 up invul. They're durable. They hit quite hard in this detachment, and they still have great utility with being able to be lifted back up into the sky. Then, of course, as always, 3 units of Cultists and 3 units of Havocs. So this is the one where you have the least amount of allies. It's demon focused. You could definitely have one of these not be layers cannons and be chain cannons. Chain cannons are really good here. Just get a bunch of volume of shots through. You can make them ignores cover. But I thought this is the strongest package for now because we do have a lot of things that are good at killing 5 to 10 man units of things. So this is just let's just push through the damage as much as we can here. So also auto cannons with ignores cover could also be interesting. Get the flat 3 damage out. So there's definitely some play there. So there's a lot to think about with these 3 detachments. And I think there is with these 3 lists, sorry. And there's lots of other ways you could build it as well. So yeah, again, let me know in the comment section below what you're liking about these, what you liked about this detachment, where you're starting with, what kind of lists you're starting with, what units you're really excited to play with now, and all that kind of stuff. Otherwise, there'll be a video up here probably, or maybe over to the side there. And otherwise, I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye!